He is miles on the road that leads away from Brunswick before he knows that he has walked a step. It is only when his dog lies down panting at his feet that he feels how exhausted he is himself, sits down on the bank to rest. How the landscape spins around and round before his dazzled eyes, while his morning sketch of the two fishermen in the canvas-covered beer glares redly at him out of the twilight. At last, after sitting for a long time by the roadside, idly playing with his dog, idly smoking, idly lounging, looking as any idle, light-hearted traveling student might look, yet all the while acting over that morning's scene in his burning brain 100 times a minute. At last he grows a little more composed, and tries presently to think of himself as he is, apart from his cousin's suicide. Apart from that, he was no worse off than he was yesterday. His genius was not gone, the money he had earned at Florence still lined his pocketbook. He was his own master, free to go whither he would. And here he sits on the roadside, trying to separate himself from the scene of that morning, trying to put away the image of the corpse covered with the damp canvas sail, trying to think of what he should do next, where he should go, to be the farthest away from Brunswick and remorse, the old diligence coming rumbling and jingling along. He remembers it. It goes from Brunswick to Aix-la-Chapelle. He whistles to the dog, shouts for the postilion to stop, and springs to the coupe. During the whole evening, through the long night, though he does not once close his eyes, he never speaks a word. But when morning dawns and the other passengers awake and begin to talk to each other, he joins in the conversation. He tells them that he is an artist, that he's going to Cologne and to Antwerp to copy Rubens's, and the great picture by Quentin Mestis at the museum. He remembered afterwards that he talked and laughed boisterously, and that when he was talking and laughing loudest, a passenger, older and graver than the rest, opened the window near him and told him to put his head out. He remembered the fresh air blowing in his face, the singing of the birds in his ears, and the flat fields and roadside reeling before his eyes. He remembered this, and then falling in a lifeless heap on the floor of the diligence. It is a fever that keeps him for 6 long weeks in a bed at a hotel in the Aix-la-Chapelle. He gets well, and, accompanied by his dog, starts on foot for Cologne. By this time he is his former self once more. Again, the blue smoke from his short meerschaum curls upwards in the morning air. Again he sings some old university drinking song. Again stops here and there, meditating and sketching. He is happy, and has forgotten his cousin. And so on to Cologne. It is by the great cathedral he is standing, with his dog at his side. It is night, the bells have just chimed the hour, and the clocks are striking 11. The midnight shines full upon the magnificent pile, over which the artist's eye wanders, absorbed in the beauty of form. He is not thinking of his drowned cousin, for he has forgotten her and is happy. Suddenly something from behind him puts 2 cold arms around his neck, and clasps its hands on his breast. And yet there is no one behind him, for on the flags bathed in the broad moonlight there are only 2 shadows, his own and his dog's. He turns quickly around. There is no one. Nothing to be seen in the broad square but himself and his dog. And though he feels, he cannot see the cold arms clasped around his neck. It is not ghostly, this embrace, for it is palpable to the touch. It cannot be real, for it is invisible. He tries to throw off the cold caress. He clasps the hands in his own to tear them asunder, to cast them back off his neck. He can feel the long, delicate fingers cold and wet beneath his touch. And on the 3rd finger of the left hand he can feel the ring which was his mother's, the golden serpent, the ring which he has always said he would know among 1,000 by touch alone. He knows it now. His dead cousin's cold arms are around his neck. His dead cousin's wet hands are clasped upon his breast. He asks himself if he is mad. "Up, Leo!" he shouts. Up, boy!" And the Newfoundland leaps to his shoulders, the dog's paws on the dead hands, and the animal utters a terrific howl and springs away from his master. The student stands in the moonlight, the dead arms around his neck, and the dog at a little distance, moaning piteously. Presently a watchman, alarmed by the howling of the dog, comes to the square to see what is wrong. In a breath, the cold arms are gone. He takes the night watchman home to the hotel with him and gives him money. In his gratitude he could have given the man half his little fortune. Will it ever come to him again, this embrace of the dead?